synopsis of where we're going. So on tomorrow, okay, tomorrow we have a quiz, okay? If you are missing any assignments, you're missing a test, a CFA, a Delta Math, or whatever, you're gonna do that tomorrow. So be here or don't be, yeah, just be here. Okay, then on the 9th, that's gonna be your performance final day. Yes, I know this is the day after a digital learning day. Okay, I do know that. I'm sorry, I did not schedule this. This is the day we were given. Okay, on the 14th, you're gonna have a CFA over all of this material. Okay, on the 16th, we'll take our Unit 3 test. And then we'll go to Thanksgiving break. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about what the schedule is? Anything like that? Okay, so if you're like, hey, I want to bring up my grade, this is how you do it. Do well on these 4 things. Okay. On the what? You're not gonna be here. Okay, so right here, we've got 4 terms. I'm gonna teach you how to factor by grouping. It's a little bit easier than other factoring, in my personal opinion. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put parentheses around the first 2 things and the second 2 things. It's like you're putting them into groups. Okay. In the first group, we're going to pull out the greatest common factor. So from here, we're going to take out an x squared. So we're going to take x to the 3rd and divide it by x squared. And that's going to leave us with x. We're going to take negative 3x squared divided by x squared. And that's going to leave us with negative 3. Yeah, I don't know. We're going to do the same thing with the second group. We're going to take the greatest common factor, which is 11. We take 11x and divide it by 11, we get x. If we take negative 33 and divide it by 11, we get negative 3. Okay. Since this repeats, that means I'm going to cross one of these out. I'm going to squish these 2 pieces together. So that's going to give me x squared plus 11 and x minus 3. Now, we're going to take each one of these and actually solve because it's asking us to plot the zeros on the coordinate plane. So we're going to take x minus 3, set it equal to 0, and then solve. That's going to give me x equals 3. I'm going to plot it on my graph. And I'm going to take a second and let you catch up. But then we got this other one that we want to solve for. So we're going to take x squared plus 11, set it equal to 0. We're going to move that 11 to the other side. And then we're going to take the square root. When we did this back with the complex numbers, this turned into x equals plus or minus I square root of 11. Remember, if there's a negative underneath the radical, that means we're going to have an imaginary solution. Okay? Okay. Is it's not going to cross the x-axis. Complex or imaginary solutions are not going to cross the x-axis. Okay? So when we graph this, we're going to go up here, kind of go like this, and continue up. Notice how this still has that cubic shape, but it does not have more than one real solution. Okay, so in my mind, when I see this and it crosses the x-axis once, that's going to tell me that I have one real solution. And since it's to the 3rd power, that means that I'm going to have 2 complex, or in this case, imaginary. Okay. Notice how I have 1 plus 2. That gives me that x to the 3rd. Does that make sense? So we're using multiplicity, right? The fact that it crosses the x-axis once, that means we have one real solution. And then we have 2 complex because complex solutions do not touch the x-axis. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I look at my y-intercept, that means when x is 0, my y is whatever's left over, right? That's going to be negative 33 right here. And I know that cubic functions look like this because of the parent function x to the third. Okay. I'll also say I didn't have these different parent functions memorized. So worst case scenario, graph it in Desmos and then you can draw the sketch of it, right? But it has that like squiggly line looking thing for x to the third. You know what x to the fourths look like? X to the fourths look like W's. Yeah. The more you practice, the better you're going to be at that kind of stuff. Yeah. I don't care which way you do it. The algorithm way is factoring by grouping. Okay, so again, if you want to look into this a little bit more, factoring by grouping, that's okay. You can do it that way. But this is the same problem that we started with. Okay, we're going to do it using the area model just to see if you can pick it up a little bit easier. Okay, so in the first box, we're going to put x to the third. Now, when we break it down into two pieces, that's going to become x and x squared. Okay, so then you're going to ask yourself, x squared times what would give me negative 3x squared? Negative 3, right? So when I multiply these two things together, I'm going to get negative 3x squared. My goal is to add these two boxes together, this diagonal, to add up to equal negative 3x squared, right? That's going to be 0x squared. And what times x would give us 0x squared? 0x. 0x times negative 3 would give us 0x. We want to add these two boxes together to equal 11x. So it's going to be 11x here. And then you're going to ask yourself, what times x would give us 11x? Be 11. 11 times negative 3 is going to give us negative 33. Okay. Again, this is not my favorite, but you can do it this way. Notice how that gives us exactly the same answer as what we did in the last problem. Okay, it's just a lot of boxes. Yes, sir. Yeah. So we're going to do this by grouping. Okay, and then if you want to do it by the area model, that's fine too. Okay, so I'm going to show you the factoring by grouping. I'm going to put parentheses around the first two and parentheses around the last two. And I'm going to take out the greatest common factor. So from x to the third and negative ax squared, that's going to be x squared that we pull out. X to the third divided by x squared is going to give me x. Negative ax squared, when I divide it by x squared, I'm going to get negative a. In the next group, I'm going to pull out a negative 25. When I divide negative 25x by negative 25, that's going to leave me with x. I'm going to take 25a and divide by negative 25, and that's going to give us negative a. Since we see that these repeat, I'm going to take this one out, squish these two numbers together, and bring that x minus a down.
Why do you divide by negative 5?
When I divide by negative 25, because this first term is negative.
Or you divide by the first term?
You divide by the greatest common factor, but if the first term is negative, then it's going to be negative whatever the greatest common factor is. Now, we learned in the last unit that if we have difference of squares, that we can factor them. So for instance, what's the square root of x squared? It's just x, right? What's the square root of 25? Okay, so we can rewrite this as x minus 5 times x plus 5 times x minus a. Okay, let me explain. Your quiz is going to look like these questions. This is exactly what you're going to be given. Okay, so no like surprises, anything there. This is exactly what it's going to look like. Okay, so your domain, I'm telling you right now, is going to be negative infinity, positive infinity. I already know that before doing anything because I could plug in any x value into this equation. So negative infinity to positive infinity is going to be my domain for this polynomial function. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to graph it. You're going to have two different functions. One's going to be a cubic, which is what this is. Okay. Because it's got an x to the third. The other one's going to be an x to the fourth. Okay. So again, I'm telling you what the function is going to be. So the domain is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. The range is what is your lowest y value, your highest y value. And in this case, it's negative infinity to positive infinity. So what is my lowest y value? If I zoomed out on here, it keeps going forever down, right? And it keeps going on forever up, right? So that's represented by negative infinity to positive infinity. That's my range. And then it's positive infinity. You're going to see it on the x to the fourth. So for the x to the third, it's going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. What's up? Lowest y to highest y. You kind of want to think of it like you're scanning the page. So for domain is left to right, and range is from bottom to top. That's kind of what's happening. Yep. Okay. So maximum is going to be your highest point. Now this one keeps going on forever, right? This guy right here is a relative maximum. So that's going to be 1.88, comma 4.061. This is like where like you're going up and then you get to a point and then you start coming down. That's what a maximum is. For your minimum, it's going to be your lowest y value. Now this is a relative minimum because it's not the lowest y value. So that's going to be 4.786, comma negative 8.209. Okay. In behavior, this is where everybody starts messing up and it's really easy. Okay. On here, as x approaches positive infinity, this is the same thing as saying as we go to the right. Okay. As we move to the right, what happens to our y values? Where are they going? Up to positive infinity. That's an aggressive arrow. Okay. Over here, it says as x approaches negative infinity. That means as we go to the left, what's happening to our y values? Where are they going? Negative infinity. Yeah. So aggressive. It's fine. You won't forget. You're looking at the in values. Does that make sense? In behavior is the ends of the line. Yeah, just. Okay. Yeah. Boy, stop cussing when I'm trying to record. Stop cussing. Because every single time I get a YouTube notification that says you can't post it. Every time. So increasing intervals. That means it's going up. Okay. So imagine you're on Six Flags. You're in the little cart. Are you going up right now? Yes. that's happening from negative infinity to 1.88. From this maximum to this minimum, we're going to be decreasing, okay? And that's going from 1.88 to 4.786. And then yet again, we're going back up. That's increasing. So that's happening from 4.786 to positive infinity. And again, we have a fancy way of saying and in math, and that's a U. And I know y'all can't see that in person. Hold on. So with the intervals of increasing and decreasing, it's like you're telling your friend, hey, during the ride, it was 30 seconds in, and then we went up to the top. And then a minute in, we went to the bottom. Does that make sense? Like, you're telling, when did that happen? When did it increase? When did it decrease? That's what your x values tell you. Your zeros are where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of all this mess. Okay, so when does it cross the x-axis? Right here, here, and here. Okay, so those points are 1, 3, and 6. 1, 3, and 6. Right, so I'm going to talk through a little bit of this. Remember, domain is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. We're plugging in all those numbers. Okay? Range is the lowest. I know you're not coming to my classroom. I know you're not coming to my class. No respect. All right, range is going to be from negative infinity to 3.12. Because that's my highest y value right here. Does that make sense? Like, this is the highest point. This is like Mount Everest, the highest point, right? With me? Okay. Maximum. Now, this says relative maximum. So this guy right here is your absolute maximum. Your relative maximum is going to be 0, 0. Your relative minimum is going to be negative 1.681, comma, negative 8.643. Because that's your lowest right here. It's like a little dip down. Yes, ma'am. Because this is your absolute biggest maximum, that's your highest point. You want the next highest point. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, in behavior, this guy is going to be, as x is going to the right, what's happening to your y values? Well, they're going down, right? As you go to the left, what's happening to your y values? Going down still, okay? Now let's go ahead and list out our zeros, because that's really easy. It's wherever it crosses the x-axis. That guy is going to be negative 4, negative 3, and 0. Now, for increasing and decreasing, this is where everybody always messes up. Okay. Remember, you're going to start down here in the little cart. You're going up or down on this part. Up. So we're increasing. So we're going from negative infinity to negative 3.569. And then you're going from the top down. So that's going from negative 3.569 to negative 1.681. From negative 1.681 to 0, we're also increasing. So that's another one. And then we're going to decrease one last time. That's going to be from 0 to positive infinity. Okay, again, these little U symbols just mean a fancy symbol for and.